Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right into this one. Yeah, folks, this is not a pretty sight. They've got a major deal with Jaden Rashada, who is their five-star quarterback, and he's saying, show me the money, and they have not done so, it doesn't appear.
Jerry, you better yell, show me the money!
Now, this has been blowing up in Florida's face for about a week now, and there's been all kinds of trials and tribulations and all of that, and it's kind of a bit of a dumpster fire, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Remain calm. All is well. All is well.
I mean, their five-star quarterback is not there. He's not enrolled, is my understanding. And today was critical as far as spring practice is concerned. If you're not enrolled, that's an issue because that's the deadline. So it's, you know, they can probably work around a deadline, but still it's messy. And there's an article out that really details this thing from The Athletic, and I'm going to show you this. This one says how the $13 million recruitment of Jaden Rashada fell apart. Now, this guy's a four-star quarterback. Some people have him as a five-star. He's the number 56 overall prospect, and there's one place that has him at 28, and he's the number 7 quarterback in the country. And his father's name is Harlan, and the CEO of the Gator Collective, and that's their NIL deal, is Eddie Rojas. And he's a former baseball player who entered the NIL space with a crowdsourcing platform, and Rojas hoped to make his alma mater known as NILU. He said of his collective in April, I would venture to say the Gator Collective is paying more guaranteed money than any group in the country. When I write a contract, I want to make sure that we actually have the money in our account. So that makes you kind of step back because obviously they had some sort of an understanding, you would think, with Jaden. Otherwise, why would he have signed the National Letter of Intent? Not to be confused with NIL. So let's get a little further into this. It says, Jen Grosso, NIL coordinator for the Gator Collective, known as Gator Jen, holds finance and law degrees from Florida. Hugh Hathcock, a mega donor who pledged $12.6 million to the department. He launched Gator Guard, an assembly of wealthy donors capable of writing checks larger than the fan collective could amass in years. So obviously a bunch of super rich big dogs. It says players need to know if they come to the University of Florida that they'll have the best opportunities NIL-wise at any school in America, blah, blah, blah. Now here's the timeline. This is really interesting. June 7th, Rashada takes an official visit to Florida, and the visit ended with Florida looking like the front runner. And then on the 9th, he joined 7-on-7 team, the Miami Immortals, a travel squad funded by the University of Miami billionaire booster John Ruiz. And that's Miami. So there's your Miami connection. On the 20th, where he had initially scheduled to make his commitment on the 18th, Rashada postpones the announcement and schedules an official visit to Miami. So there's the Miami tie-in. Then on the 26th, Rashada committed to Miami over Florida and others. November 10th, Rashada and the Gator Collective agree to terms on an NIL deal exceeding $13 million is what this report says. That just seems incredibly high. He's the number, 56 player or number 28, $13 million bucks. What kind of, I mean, it was probably a multi-year deal, but that's a lot. You know, that's a heck of a risk on a guy that's, 175 pounds. But everything that we've heard is that's the number. So, It said, such a massive pledge is thought to dramatically exceed the Gator Collective's fundraising level. So the deal presumes assistance from Hathcock and other Gator Guard donors. After signing the contract, it says, Rashada decommits from Miami and flips to Florida, which everybody was surprised by that. But we didn't know all this. The 12th of November, Rashada attends his first game at the Swamp. Florida clobber South Carolina, and everything felt right, he said, etc. Then on December 7th, and I guess this is the critical date when just everything kind of went crazy, it says that Rojas, and I'll show you that, it says Rojas sends a termination letter regarding the $13 million contract, according to a program source close to the situation. There are conflicting accounts about why the deal crumbled and who pledged to pay what. Multiple conversations ensue between donors and athletic department members. You can imagine it was probably total chaos. Some within the administration are only now getting up to speed on what was promised. And that's probably real tough because remember, you can't have these tied together. You know, the athletic department's got to be separate from the NIL. Then you've got the player. So you've got three things going on there, and a lot can happen weird between three people. And if you've ever had any kind of dealings with multiple people, one person says this, one person says that, then you've got conflicts. Look, NIL is tricky. It is just tricky, and everybody's new at this. And here it says NIL dealings that got to be kept at arm's length. Yet these conversations ultimately focus on finding contingencies to keeping the high-profile recruit in the fold. Then December 21st, important date, Billy Napier delayed by 67 minutes his news conference because he was waiting on Jaden to sign. He was not on the list of signees. He was added at the last minute. And then I think it got into a high level of trust on both ends is what had to happen. They must have come to some sort of gentleman's agreement maybe between NIL and Jaden. I don't know. Here they're talking about can't compliment Jaden enough relative to who he is as a person, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. Then on December 29th, Rashada arrives in Orlando to begin practicing at the All-American game. He compliments Florida signees, eager to start working out, et cetera, et cetera. Then on December 30th, an interview mere days before Rashada's scheduled enrollment, Harlan calls Napier a leader of men and says Jaden is happy, and I've never seen him, blah, blah, blah. So everybody's happy then. January 3rd, moments after the Under Armour game, Rashada poses for pictures with other signees. He's saying great things. Then January 10th arrives. 16 early enrollees report, but Rashada is not among them. So that's when all heck broke loose. January 10th, like everybody started freaking out. Then on the 11th, the program source with knowledge says Rashada won't be enrolling at Florida. There's a lot of panic. It's like stepping on an anthill. He said there's always a potential of, here they're talking about litigation hinging upon whether the November contract is binding. The collectives, according to another program source with knowledge, are offering a lesser deal to Rashada, still above seven figures, to stay at Florida with the caveat that he releases everyone from all previous claims. So they're wanting to cut him a new deal if he'll release them. So he's probably sitting there going, hey, we had an agreement. What are you doing? And they're going, no, here's another one I can actually get for you, but you're going to have to set us free on any litigation, is what it appears based on this report. So, man, it's getting tricky. Here's an On3 report. Of course, it got refuted by Rashada asked to be released from his national letter of intent. His father said no, he had not done that. And I remember On3 took a lot of grief over this. And he said they were working through some things with Florida and hoping to get this resolved. And Harlan said the situation becomes murkier if there's not a resolution by January 13th, which is today at 5 o'clock, which is the spring semester's late registration deadline. Then on January 13th as well. Then on January the 13th, which is the final deadline, which is today, they do say that the admission office would grant him an exception in their opinion. So it's not a real deadline, but it is a deadline. Talks about how if there's an 11th hour decision by Rashada to accept Florida's counter and enroll to begin speed dialing other FBS schools, of course, there's the chance that he could sacrifice spring and enroll in Florida in late May, which might crash the message boards over such extended drama. Then it asks, is this a lose-lose for Florida? Of course, they've got Graham Mertz here, who came from Wisconsin. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. He was a high-end quarterback, but he's not played all that well at Wisconsin. He's got almost as many interceptions as he does touchdowns, and he throws for a high 50% completion rate. Then they've got Jack Miller, who didn't play so well in the Las Vegas Bowl. Look, they only scored 3 points with him, so I don't think anybody's excited about that situation. And that's tough, man. Your first game is a big bowl game, but 3 points is 3 points, so everybody's worried. So they're basically having to rely on some guys that are there plus Graham Mertz to rebuild the Gators. It says even if the relationship somehow proves salvageable, Rashada enrolls in Gainesville, et cetera, would it only portend future dysfunction? Having overcome one breakup last summer, can the program and Rashada's camp repair another rift? And there are a lot of bruised feelings at a minimum and abject animosity, kind of like arbitration in Major League. And then it talks about how the NIL error is really gotten salty with Nick Saban, said Texas A&M bought every player in its top-ranked class. They may very well have, and boy, how'd that work out for them. What a disaster there. They've got well over 20 players that are gone. A lot of the highly recruited freshmen have been put off the team or they've left. And now we've seen similar things with Miami. I'm wondering if Miami's not the next Texas A&M. So Florida's got some issues. First of all, they're coming off 2 losing seasons, one with a new coach, A 6-7 season is not going to sit well with Florida at all. The last guy that did that got let go. So Napier's got to turn this thing around. Here's the deal. You have to have a great quarterback to turn it around in the SEC. You're not going to be able to do it with a regular quarterback. You've got to be elite. And we proved that at Tennessee. Hendon Hooker just brought us up a notch. Of course, we got Josh Heupel and that whole situation. Hopefully we'll get him extended very soon.
Saddle! Saddle, 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 saddle!
Because I could not be more pleased with our head coach. But this situation in Florida could not be worse. They've got 24 players that have entered the transfer portal, and a lot of them are really good players. Most of their offensive line, it seems like, has entered. So I'm not sure what's going on down there. They've only had 6 come from the transfer portal to them, so they're short 18 players there. Now they've got this issue with their highest-rated player in this year's class. So they're going to drop from, 11 to 14 or 15 as far as a rating. And I can tell you that the fan base is freaking out. And I showed you the other day on my last video, the fan reaction was not good. So the question is, how do they resolve this? And nobody knows at this point. It's just a big dumpster fire. And they're going to have to fix it one way or the other because this is going to scare other players. They're going to sit there and go, hey, if I got an NIL deal with Florida, are they going to honor it? What's happening here? That's not a good image to have out there. Not at all. These young guys, they don't know who to trust. But if they see another guy like themselves getting creeked, no bueno. They're not going down that road. They'll go to another team that actually backs what they say. And that's tough for a team because that's not Florida saying it. It's the NIL collective. So very difficult. And folks, I know a lot of you Tennessee fans are upset about this. And it's a team I know you are just hoping every day we'll get this resolved, because the last thing the Vol fan base wants to see is Florida struggling on anything, because they're just our favorite team ever. Florida has had their fun with us over the last 15 years, except this year, and we need to dominate them for the next 10 years. And I'm sorry, I'm going to take marshmallows and put it out on this fire and just enjoy it because the Florida fans have dunked on us for over a decade, and I'm sick of it, and I know you are too. And, they're heading down a real bad path. And I can tell you, as a team that's been down a bad path, once you start going down it and you start changing coaches and all that, that's not a good place to be. You can stay down there for a decade. So they'd better get their crap together real fast. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that button on the left or right here. A lot of y'all watch my programs and you don't hit that button. Just boom, hit that button. It's totally free. And I've also got a video right here YouTube puts up. That's one of my more popular ones. Be sure to check that out. And I hope you did like the content. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.